I'm on. Welcome. Welcome to You Make the Call, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Important show tonight. We have Ward 1, 2, 4, and 6 with us. Not all of them. All candidates were invited, and only these folks, felt it was important enough to show up and to talk to the residents of Peabody and the people that are going to go to the polls and vote. So we appreciate all of that. Thank you for coming. And for the incumbents who chose not to come, well, I hope you put your feet up and enjoy the show. Anyway, I'm going to get into this right away because we're going to ask them a lot of questions, and we want to showcase them so that you all get a chance to see who they are. And Barry and I have loaded up on some questions. But I want to, before we get started, I want to make one opening remark. I've been dying to do this for a long time. I've been dying to lay into the system. And so I'm just going to say, get right into it. Poll after poll, I don't care if it's the Harris poll or the Gallup poll, Suffolk University, Quinnipiac, it doesn't matter which poll it is, shows that the American public is really fed up with our political system. Of course, I think we all knew that, but sometimes we rely on polls to tell us what we already know. And, government's not working for us. And that's not at all level. It's not at one level, it's at all levels. We have elected officials and bureaucrats. They spend more of our money, and we get less service. They raise taxes, but we get nothing to show for it. And they fail to listen to us, which we already knew anyway. And they don't resolve the problems that we face and that affect all of us. In short, our government is distant from us because we feel that they don't pay attention to us. And what we have tonight is we have candidates for the ward, in the ward race coming up on November 6th. That's 13 days from now.
November 5th.
5th, I'm sorry. I did that last week too. November 5th, that's 13 days from now. So it's less than 2 weeks away. So in short, we just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to see these candidates and hear what they have to say. And so I'm going to, and what I said about government is not in dispute. Polls show that what I said is true. And we're going to ask some questions that somewhat reflect some of those things that polls show. So my first question is going to be, before we get going, my first question is to Craig Welton, a candidate in Ward 1. But what we want to do is so that everybody out there knows who's here tonight. Craig Welton, Russ Donovan, these are Ward 1 candidates. Jackie Caravel, Ward 2. John Salisbury Rosewell, Ward 4. And Craig Doucette, Ward 6. Keith Doucette in Ward 6. So let's get the camera on all of them and just make sure you see them all, okay? So what we're going to do with the questioning, we're going to go around like this and then come back the other way. If I can remember, I do it right. So, so my first question is to Craig Welton, candidate in Ward 1. You'll all get the same question. Elected officials, now I want you to take your candidates' hats off, if you will. Take them off and put on your citizens' hats, okay? So we're all just common citizens sitting here. What qualities or characteristics do you want to see in someone who elects you? I mean, that serve you, you elect them.
Yeah, as a constituent.
As a constituent, that's right.
I think the number one quality that you'd want in an elected official is responsiveness. You want to know that you've been heard. You also want to know that the issue that you have in front of you is going to be taken care of, and have the ability to reach out to your elected official and know that your interests are being well represented. So I think the biggest concern for me as a constituent in voting is, will the candidate that I'm voting for be responsive to the needs of myself and of my community?
Okay, very good. Mr. Donovan, Russ Donovan. Same question.
Same question. I think number one quality would be a good listener, to listen to the concerns of the neighborhoods, of the voters, of the residents, and take their concerns as priority. because as we go to all these meetings on city council, they tend to listen to special interest groups and they forget the voters and the residents who have to pay the bills and live in the community. So a good listener and responsive to the residents' concerns.
Okay. Jacqueline?
You know, Dick, that's a great question, because one thing I always like to say is I'm a resident first and a candidate second, because I'll never forget what the residents have gone through with a lot of these issues that are happening in Ward 2. So I have to say there's two. I'd like a balance between someone who's proactive and someone who's responsive, because I think a lot of the situations we're in right now could have been prevented had some of the councilors been more proactive.
Okay, thank you. John?
Well, I think being responsive is very important, but it's really only half of the job, because what a city councilor is supposed to be doing is thinking ahead of what problems are there. He's supposed to have done his homework before problems come up. And when he's responsive, you know, you always have city services that people ask for, and it's fine if people don't know where they're going. But if people aren't being served, it's not just making the call and getting it done, it's also seeing why they're not being served. That's the most important part, because if in an ideal situation, the ward councillor would never have to make a call for city services. It would just be taken care of by the departments. That's kind of the difference between a politician and a manager or a counselor. Counselor, the ideal is nobody ever really has to make my call. I love it when they do, but they don't have to. Politician, they want people to run through them. And you're not, if everything has to run through you, you're not really being a boss, you're being a bottleneck. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. Keith?
So I also believe that responsiveness is one of the most important characteristics that an elected official should have. But over and above that, you know, being responsive is one thing. Being responsive and then going after the concern and fixing it, that is the second part of this. The follow through needs to be there. So if you're taking the call, you're being responsive to your constituent, make sure that you're following through. So if you get a call on, let's say, a developer and that's maybe not doing the right thing, you really need to make sure that you follow through, talk to the developer, find out what's going on, and then go back to the constituent and let them know this is what's going on, this is what happened, and I'll make sure I keep you informed going forward. So I think those are the most important qualities of a ward councillor, and again, I think you solve a lot of problems right in the beginning by just having that follow through after the fact.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very good.
Okay, Barry?
All right, so this question I have is for the Ward 1 candidates. We'll go to Russ first, and then Craig can answer the question. So in Ward 1, the L. Fine building has been languishing now for the last 4 years, and it's kind of been kicked down the road a little, the can. Nothing's happening in it. There's contamination. There's even been some lawsuits, I guess, I read in the paper. But there's 14 acres of land that needs to be redeveloped. We can't just let it sit there vacant. If elected, would you support a residential overlay district like the city presented on Pulaski Street or on Route 1? Or would it be a mixed use 55 over with retail, or is something else that you would consider for that site? We'll start with Russ.
Thank you very much, Barry. That site is a very interesting site. There's a lot of economical, environmental issues on that property that people really don't, the general public doesn't know about. And the city, as it's zoned right now, is an industrial park, I believe. And right now, the city properties, we're limited in how many properties we have and what we can do with it. The worst possible use of that would be residential, because it's in the smack dab in the middle of an industrial park around there. And it would be the last choice to have residential development down there for me. And I think the environmental issues have to be addressed because there's some contamination on the property, as you alluded to, and the city already has ordinances in their code about maintaining the properties from being deteriorated, and the city hasn't enforced their own code of maintaining the property that they have not done. So before we rush to another development, the city should look at its future use, and the last use would be residential.
Okay.
Okay. Before we go any further, just want, I know a lot of you have soft voices, so try to pick it up a little if you can, okay? And if you want to talk to, the viewing audience, remember that's the camera you want to look at, so, not that we don't mind you looking at us, but I think the important thing is that they look at you, okay? So, all right. All right, question 2.
Gotta go to Craig.
I'm sorry, Craig, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I also agree that that's not the appropriate site for residential development. I think Ward 1 has seen its fair share of residential development, and I think that has contributed to a lot of the infrastructure problems we have, the traffic. If you spend any time on Linfield Street in the morning or in the evening when people are coming home from work, you would know that that's quite an issue for us. That particular parcel is dead center, right in the middle of probably the thick of the biggest traffic concern that we have in that section of town. So I agree, I don't think residential development in that area is really the best use for that land. Having said that, I know that there's a lot of environmental concerns. I know it's a huge parcel of land. And I think even if it's used for commercial use, we really need to look at how that's developed and do it in a manner where it's really not contributing to even more of a drain on the infrastructure and also the traffic in that area. So I think there's a lot of work to be done there. I don't have a plan that's ready to go and I'm going to say, okay, well, this is exactly how we should move forward. Because I think however we move forward with that parcel of land and develop that, it needs to be done with a lot of care, a lot of reaching out to the neighborhoods and reaching out to the constituents in Ward 1, and particularly the constituents on the Linfield Street side of Ward 1, to make sure that everyone's in agreement with how we move forward.
Okay. All right. Question 2. The campaign came up at the Council at Large, forum that we had here. Quality of life. Obviously, that's a big issue in this upcoming election. City seems obsessed with changing or seeking to change zoning ordinances to allow for more housing. They seem obsessed with development of more housing units all over the city. But quality of life is really significant because people in neighborhoods are fighting back now against development, as you well are aware, more than they have in the past. So it begs the question, but it seems as though quality of life has now become one of the most important issues to the public. So what say you on the city's proposals dealing with quality of life is more housing, developing sites to put more housing units on. So I want to ask, what say you about that? Okay, so we're going this way. So Keith, you're on. Yeah, we're going to go this way. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, all the development that's going on in the city now and that's being proposed, we have to slow down, and we have to take a slower approach to getting these developments cleared and whatnot. As we know, there's been a lot of talk about quality of life and everything, and how the neighborhoods are affected and everything. The traffic issue in this city has reached huge proportions. When I'm taking my daughter down to Carroll School from my house in Ward 6, and it's taken me 45 to 50 minutes to get to the Carroll School, that's crazy. So we have to slow down. We have to look at the traffic issues that are going to come up especially from these larger projects. The project that was being looked at the mall, I think, was 600 plus apartments that they were talking about or something, with a shared parking space. That's going to interject so much traffic into the 114 Lowell Street area. It's going to be gridlock. The other thing, it's not just an inconvenience to us and people driving down Lowell Street. It becomes a public safety issue. If the traffic's in the way, the fire trucks can't get through, the police cars can't get through, the ambulances can't get through. we need to slow down on the development. I'm not saying we don't need it. We need to slow down, though, and figure out the best approach to it, figure out the traffic issues that we're going to get, figure out the public safety issues that are going to come up from it, and find legitimate solutions by bringing in the people within the city, the residents, and asking their opinions and getting them involved on how we should be handling the traffic and the development in the city.
Okay, thanks. John?
Well, when you talk about quality of life, first thing you have to do is say what you mean by it. I mean, there are people who live in downtown Boston or Revere who think they have a great lifestyle because it's that lifestyle. What we really have to think about is why we love Peabody. And I know walking around Ward 4, we're close to things, it's convenient, but we have a lot of neighborhoods where kids can bicycle and quiet streets. We have a goal. Everybody in the various Ward 4 neighborhoods kind of agree on what they want. And when you're looking at development, you also have to define what it is that the neighborhood needs, what it doesn't need. For instance, fast traffic in a kid-friendly neighborhood just doesn't mix. So we should always be considering what the individual neighborhood wants, and we should talk to them first about where they would let development, where they want it to stop. I definitely think we need to talk about cut-throughs. We need to talk about, for instance, signage, stop signs to break up the fast traffic within neighborhoods. And basically, we also have to do a better job of planning how you get in and out of these little neighborhoods that are, frankly, everybody loves, but are really hard to maintain. Because I know that certainly in Ward 4, we all want to maintain our neighborhoods as they are.
Okay, thank you. Jackie?
I think before we move forward with any more development that has an impact on everybody's quality of life, I think we need to have a very clear goal in mind for what we want as a city, what Ward 2 wants as a ward. And the problem that I've seen with overdevelopment is that we don't have a plan and we're not being proactive about issues that come from overdevelopment. We haven't consulted with anyone who's an expert in traffic. There are multi-jurisdictional issues here. You have federal laws, state laws, and city ordinances that govern traffic. You can't move things around without respect to those laws and ordinances. So I'd like to see us have a very solid plan in place before we build any more multi-unit apartment buildings, which I really wouldn't like to see at all in Ward 2. But even moving forward with smaller projects, how are we going to accommodate the resources that we need, people with the resources that they need, like police, fire, schools. And second of all, I think we have a really large population here that we need to think of first before we think of bringing other people in, seniors being one population. They've been overtaxed for the past decade or so. I think we need to focus on that before we focus on bringing more people to put more of a strain on our resources.
Okay, thank you. Russ?
Quality of life. As anyone who knows Peabody and knows the impact of development, quality of life is going to change in Peabody because of development. It's the cost of development. Cost to the city in terms of infrastructure. We're paying $36 million for a new water system that the Peabody residents will have to pay for. The school systems will be impacted with further development. Peabody and all of New England, we're an aging population. The student population in Peabody, the last superintendent said, in the high school was down 500 students. But our budget at the high school and the school system keeps going up every year. So the cost to the city is going to be quality of life, because we're going to turn into an inner city, if you will, with all this development. The roads are not designed to take the traffic that we have. We cannot create new roads in the city of Peabody. We have to affect the traffic flow. For those who are familiar, a little older, I guess I'm the oldest one here, off of 128, we had a exit onto Lowell Street. And before that, my old friend Bill Toomey, years ago, we were talking about a connector road back in the 70s and 80s, because we were trying to take the traffic off of 114 that was going through downtown Peabody. We were going to send the truck traffic down Pulaski Street to go down Margin Street, but they found a shortcut through Gardner Street, I think it was. So we have to make better decisions. And right now in the city, they've just come up with a housing production plan, which is to bring more housing into the city, which we cannot afford. So the problem with quality of life is going to change. It's not going to get better if we continue to develop the city that we don't have. So my point is, quality of life is going to be impacted. We have to recognize it, and we should look forward and see what we can do to reduce the impact.
Greg? Thank you. Thank you.
So for myself, quality of life is having good schools, having nice parks, having walkable sidewalks, having all the nice things that we like to have and the amenities that we enjoy in Peabody while still keeping the affordability. That's the big balancing act that we're always trying to do. And I think all of us in this room are interested in a lot of those same things. As it pertains to residential development, I think the zoning overlay in the North Shore Mall area, I would like to see if that comes to fruition, thorough analysis on infrastructure and how we can have traffic mitigation to help solve those issues. But the reality is, until we hit our 40B threshold, we're still shy of our affordable housing. So there's going to have to be some proactive approach to add additional housing. Beyond that, additional residential development. In Ward 1, I believe we're just saturated. I can't see where we could even have a large-scale project going in, for all the reasons that we've discussed earlier with the strain on the infrastructure and the traffic. But I think the main thing with residential development is until we hit that threshold, and I know we're close, and I know the city's done a lot of work to get there, but until we hit that threshold, we're really not in the driver's seat in terms of how we can develop some of these larger scale projects. So if I'm elected, I would like to work on making sure we hit that threshold for the 40B affordable housing, and then look forward to additional residential development only where it makes sense, only where it's in an area where it's going to have minimal impact to the quality of life that we discussed earlier.
Okay. All right. Barry?
So this question is for
Jackie?
For Ward 2. So Ward 2 is one of the hardest hit areas in terms of development and quality of life. The traffic at times can be gridlocked. Parking for residents and for businesses is a huge problem. And that can affect businesses where people don't want to go there because it's tough to get there, then you can't find a place to park. Rousselot is right outside our downtown, emanating odors here and there. So there's some serious issues there. Yet the development plan seems to be more housing. So what is your opinion of this plan? And if you were elected, what would you do differently?
I would definitely be in opposition to any large-scale housing developments in Ward 2. You touched on a lot of important issues. Ward 2 is a very interesting ward in that we do cover most of downtown. We also have a very large residential area in South Peabody on the Salem line, and traffic has been out of control lately. I had to drive around the block 3 times to eat at the Next Mex on Main Street, and eventually I was able to find a spot. But if you're pressed for time, that's a real turnoff. I'm very disappointed that we have shared parking at the Disco building. I think that's a huge mistake. I would never be in favor of shared parking. And like I said before, we need to have a goal. We need to have a vision for what we want as a city, what we want as a downtown. We can't just keep taking tiny little bites at the apple without taking into account what we want as an entire city and as an entire ward. Ward 2 does have a lot of pressing quality of life issues. I would never support the 40B that's happening on Oak Street. I think that's a terrible idea. We do not need 80 units. But what I would like to see happen, that aside, is like I said before, we need to bring in someone who has a city planning background that can tell us how to address these traffic issues, these congestion issues, what we can do to alleviate some of that and create a better traffic pattern. I think that would be a step in the right direction to having an idea of where we want to be and being more proactive with our developments if they move forward, with how we can address those issues before they become so bad that people don't want to eat at our restaurants, like you said, and don't want to live downtown.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay. John?
No,
I'm
it's your
sorry.
question. Dick.
All right. You all set?
No, it's your question.
I know. I got this.
I can answer, but
No, I thought you were going to say something. That's why.
No.
Oh,
I just
okay.
didn't.
That's why. Okay. You look like you wanted to say something. That's why.
I always look like I want to say something.
Okay. That's why I looked over. So I thought maybe you wanted to make a comment. Affordability. that's another one of these, like quality of life, affordability has been getting a lot of ink and press and talk among the candidates in this election. And so I guess a straightforward question is, for each one of you, do you believe that Peabody is an affordable place to live for all residents? And in your answer, explain, if it's yes or no, explain, explain your answer, okay? Where are we going with this one? Is this, I'm not sure where we're
You're the
going.
boss, I don't know.
Okay.
You started with
I
Keith,
think we're
so I
gonna
think
s-
it's
I'll be
back to
glad
No,
to.
we went this way, okay, so
I'll be glad to take it.
it's yours, it's yours. Yeah. It's yours, Russ.
Affordable housing is a political term that was created by the legislature. As we know, we're under the affordability of 10%. But when you look at the affordability, you got to look at what the government is talking about. They are prescribing their qualifications, and they're not taking into account the entire population of who counts as an affordable unit. For example, a owner-occupied building, like my house, my income could be below the poverty level, but they won't count it as an affordable housing because it is not government subsidized. They count the numbers. Right now, Peabody has 22,000 housing units, and we're at 2,000, give or take, affordable units. Now, the affordable units also have qualifications of durability. With the Crown and Shield building that was developed 40 years ago under HUD, they gave them a 40-year period. After that, it became marketable, and all of a sudden the city was in the shorts for about several hundred affordable units because of the plan that governments have for affordability. So the affordable, Peabody is very affordable. If you look at the population and our income and the age, we have a housing stock of about 22,000 units, but the government's counting. They don't count the mobile homes, which is very affordable, but they don't count 700 plus mobile homes up off of Route 1. They're not counted in the tally, but they are affordable. Right now, the rents up there are about $300 to $500 a month for a rental. Where can you get an apartment in downtown Peabody for $500 a month? But they won't count them because they're not part of the equation. So yes, Peabody is affordable. It's the marketing from the government that makes it a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Russ. Jackie?
So I think you need to take a step back 20, 30 years and look at when Terigian was mayor. And a lot of people came to Peabody because of the tax rate. We had very few tax increases under Terigian. I was very young. I don't necessarily remember as well as some people do, but I do know that the city was even more affordable back then than it is now. So it's very difficult to ask a population that moved into a city like Peabody under Terigian to put up with the tax increases that we've had for the past 17 years when they moved here because their budget allowed for what it was then. So it's very unfair to the people now who have reached their senior years to all of a sudden put 17 straight years of tax increases down their throats, especially those people that are living on a fixed income. I don't think it's right, and there are abatement options for people over 65, veterans, but is Peabody affordable? Yeah. But over the grand scheme of the past few decades, I think stability is a more important question. And I'm saying that not just for people who are 65 and older, but people with kids who are trying to budget, people like me in their late 20s, early 30s, who want to buy a first home like I did a few years ago. And you look forward. You're not going to look back. You want to look forward. How has the city behaved and approached taxes? All of a sudden we went from 0 to 60 just over the past decade or so. And I think that's an important question, is stability.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
John?
Well, again, I think Russ touched on this a little bit. Affordability is a different problem. There's a Peabody affordability problem, and then there's, of course, the state benchmarks. State benchmarks we have to meet. It's state law. We have no choice about it. But if we leave becoming over 10% to private profit developers, we're going to be a long way off. I mean, if you think about it, we really only get 5 units per 100 units that are built that'll be affordable. In order to meet our state mandated goal, we'd have to build a whole new neighborhood. That's 3,000, I think, units in order to meet our affordability just from the set-asides in for-profit construction. I think what we have to do is look at what Peabody goals are. I do think that walking the neighborhoods, you see that there are a lot of people who are afraid, for instance, for their parents, their elderly, and yeah, there's a need for probably senior housing, for assisted living housing, but really low income, not necessarily affordable, where you can't afford to maybe live in a house. If we do something like that, that's every single unit we build, that's a credit towards our goal, and actually it serves Peabody much better. And it does something else, which it means that our neighborhoods are more stable, which was supposed to be the point of affordable housing in the first place, but which it doesn't really meet, according to the state.
Okay, thank you, John. Keith?
I think that's a great question, but I think it's a question that's just not easily answered. So I would say for some, it's affordable, but for many, it's not. And so what's happening is we are slowly but surely, as I'm walking around the ward and I'm talking to people, people that I've known for 30, 40 years, we're taxing our seniors out of their houses. So when I'm looking at a $400 tax increase for a year, a senior looking at that is deciding, okay, I need to either pay my taxes or I need to get my medicine this month. And that's not far-fetched. My parents have medications that cost $300 a month. So that's a different problem. But anyway, again, we're taxing them straight out of their houses. I've heard over and over again from seniors, they're afraid. They have 1, maybe 2 years left of these larger tax increases that we're getting before they have to put their houses on the market. And that's not right.
Yeah.
So with that, we go on the other spectrum, and several people have said that they want to try to keep things affordable here in Peabody for younger families. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I remember when I was first buying my house with my wife Rosemary, and there was no way I was looking at a $900,000 house. And those are the developments that are going in right now. All right, so there's no way that a 20-year-old couple starting a family is going to come in and move into $1 million home. So in that instance, no, it's not affordable for everybody. It's affordable for probably the people that are here working in the kind of the middle class, I guess is the best word that we could say for it, that have been here for a while. It's affordable for us. Again, another affordability issue is my affordability is different than somebody else's. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that might be all right for somebody to not have to live up in, let's say, New Hampshire or Maine, further away, where they can have not have to live paycheck to paycheck. So again, it's a question of, is it affordable? Yes, it is. Is it affordable for everybody? No, it's not. And we have to really start to focus on those groups that it's not affordable for and figure out solutions to make sure that we're not sending our seniors out of their homes, and to make sure that we're making it affordable for the younger families to move in with their kids. And we need to make sure that that affordability is not bringing our school systems down. So again, it's a balancing act for sure.
Okay, thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a few points on affordability. I have lived in Peabody for just under 10 years. I actually grew up in Maine, and I can tell you, for the amount of money I spent on my house on Lynn Street, I could have bought 2 houses in the neighborhood I grew up in, Biddeford, Maine. That's just the reality of it. There's places that are more expensive than not. And 10 years ago, when my wife and I were looking for a house, Peabody was an affordable community that had a high quality of life. I know we keep throwing out those 2 things, and Dick, you had mentioned those are like the hot button words to be saying right now, right? But that's the truth of it. The high quality of life that you find, particularly in Ward 1 in South Peabody, I think it's wonderful. You have a great community, you have a lot of community engagement, you have thriving neighborhoods, a lot of activities for the kids to be doing. We have a farm in our backyard, which is amazing. So you have all the nice things that you want. And if you compare it to the communities around us, Peabody is affordable. I totally understand that our taxes have gone up. We're amongst the lowest in Essex County, but if they're increasing year after year, that's problematic. Especially, many people have brought up those that have been living on fixed incomes. I think, the abatement programs, we could do a better job proactively making those available to our seniors and those that qualify. And that will help to keep it affordable. The other issue that I think we need to look at in terms of affordability is Peabody for a very long time has leaned on our commercial businesses here to maintain a level of affordability, to maintain the lower tax rate in Essex County. We're really kind of at the max there. The commercial rate can be 175% of the residential rate. We're just under 175%. So we need to look more proactively and be more innovative and figure out if we can't put any more of the burden on the commercial businesses, which we've been doing for decades, how can we bring in more revenue into the area? I think an innovative approach is expanding the tax base, the commercial tax base, by recruiting businesses that make sense for particularly in Ward 1 in Centennial Park, businesses that will be productive and help us to increase the commercial tax base without having a tremendous strain on the infrastructure that we have there. So those are just a few ideas, I think, for how we can try to make it more affordable. The unfortunate reality is that a city of our size is never going to be affordable for everybody who lives there. I think it's incumbent upon our elected officials to do the best that they can to really find ways and innovative approaches to bring in the revenue so that it can be affordable for everyone and really strive to meet that benchmark. But it's a tall order, and I think we all have to work collectively on it.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Thanks. Okay, Barry?
Okay, this is for John and Ward 4. So once again, the word quality of life rears its head. And the issue of the J.B. Thomas project. And I think we're all well aware of that plan to put 110 units on roughly 3 acres of land in a really tightly knit neighborhood.
Right.
So the question is this: you are running against an incumbent.
Yep.
How do you think the current ward councillor has represented the residents in that area? And if elected, what would you do? Would you agree with them, or what would you do differently?
Well, no, he hasn't represented the neighbors at all. In fact, most of the neighbors will say he's been a representative for the big foreign development company. We have a neighborhood where everybody is really pretty reasonable. And when a developer comes in, they don't get special rights unless the neighbors are unreasonable, and nobody has been. The entire neighborhood is zoned 1 and 2 families, for 1 and 2 families, and that would be perfectly fine with everybody. We're not against development. The ward councillor has been promoting every single project that this development company has proposed. 150, 135, 110. And he's heard for 2 years that we don't want it. What we've told him has been ignored. He's tried to slip in motions in front of the development committee without telling anybody, after guaranteeing that we would have a community meeting. We had the whole special permit. They tried to do it again. Again, he was opposed to having a community meeting. He wanted it all to be decided August 22nd. We pushed back, and eventually there was a community meeting where he said exactly the same thing that we said before. Clearly, the neighborhood cannot take that kind of development. You wouldn't be able to get out efficiently. There isn't the parking, and the sheer amount of traffic in a very, very quiet, kid-friendly neighborhood would basically destroy that as a kid-friendly neighborhood. You'd have so many cars, kids couldn't ride their bikes. They couldn't walk to school. I just think it's a terrible project, and we've not been listened to at all. And my position is we need to know what the neighbor wants and establish that, and then if the developer wants anything above that, which is 1 and 2 family, then they have to show us something really spectacular. And that clearly has not been done.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Keith?
That's your question.
I know. Making sure you're awake.
I'm awake.
Okay. Jackie, we're going to start off with you on this one. If elected, what promises to the people watching this program can you make in Ward 2? What promises that you will make to them will you keep? Can you make a promise and you'll keep it?
Absolutely.
All
I'll
right.
return your phone calls. I'll show up to neighborhood meetings. I'll be a present ward councillor. I believe I'm the only one here tonight who's running for the seat. And this is just a classic example of the absentee leadership we've gotten from the current ward councillor. I can't tell you the number of times I've knocked on a door and people have used the word ignored, forgotten, especially people above 65. Like I've said before, they feel completely disenfranchised because they're being priced out of the city and no one is listening to them. We've had a number of issues in Ward 2, like Barry mentioned, the Rousselot project. I haven't seen him at Rousselot. I've met with them several times. I've been on the Rousselot Facebook page, gone door to door, conveying as much information as I can about what the odor is, that it's not hazardous, and that unfortunately it's just a really unpleasant thing that sometimes we have to put up with, and that I'm doing everything I can to convey as much information as I can, and I have not run into him one time in these attempts. We've had a lot of issues with the Oak Street. People feel like the Oak Street 40B housing project, and people really feel just completely left out of the conversation in Ward 2, and that they're not being represented. So I can make a promise that I will return your calls. I will show up just like I showed up here tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right. John?
Okay. What promise I would make?
Yeah,
That-
and keep.
and keep. Well, I guess I would promise to be just about the worst politician you've ever seen, because a lot of what is wrong. To tag onto your little thing, a lot of the problem with the way things are run is that they're run by politicians. You know, people want photo ops, they want sanitized statements. Everything is happy talk, and that just isn't the way anything works. If you're in a business, you want to hear where the problems are, you want to know in advance, and you want to think ahead. That isn't being done because all you have to do when you're a politician is check the box. As long as you have your name on something, you're good. That is not the way you solve problems. The way you solve problems is you go out there, you cannot be scared of tough questions. You cannot block out constituents when they have differing views, and you need to go around. In fact, one of the things I've found is that actually campaigning, you think it's a job, but it's actually a lot of fun. You go door to door, and you've got really nice people, and they're worried, and they're busy, and the one thing that they don't want is to be sold something. They want you to be a source of information. They want you to be doing your homework. And I'm a scientist. I'm that weird kid who kind of likes to do my homework. And I think that's what people need. They need somebody who's going to be their contact, who's going to know what's going on before it happens, and to consult them and be able to let them make rational choices and sensible choices. And they're very sensible people in Ward 4 about what they want for the ward. So that's
Okay.
my politician.
Okay.
That's
So you
my
promise-
promise.
you promise
I
not to be
promise not to do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Keith?
No, I mean, I have several promises that I will make and keep. The first one being responsiveness, which I think everybody who knows of me and knows that I created Moving Peabody Forward, I think they all know that I'm going to be pretty responsive and open with all of my dealings if fortunate enough to be elected to a seat. But with that, there are other things. So the responsiveness is one thing. I'll make sure that whatever way you want me to be in contact with you, I will do. Whether it's you want me to come to your front door, you want me to ring your landline, cell phone, email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. I'm going to answer your questions on there. The second promise that I'm going to make is I will promise my ward residents and all the residents of Peabody that I will work with whoever is on the council and whoever is in the corner office. And when I say work with them, I mean work, trying to figure out solutions to the problems. I will not just be a yes or a no vote because somebody asked me. If they ask me to vote a certain way, I'm going to ask them for the information. If they give me the information and the information is what they say it is and it deserves a no vote or a yes vote, I will certainly go along with them and work with them on that. If it's just a rubber stamp, I'm not going to do that, and I will promise I will vote no or yes, whichever way it needs to go. But I will hold them accountable to bringing me the information for the vote to make sure it's the right thing for the residents, not only of my ward but for the entire city. Because even ward councilors work for the entire city. We don't only vote on ward stuff. So that's the second promise I would keep, and then. The third promise I would keep is that I am just always there. No matter what time of the day or night, I work in the security business, have for 30 years. My phone has never been turned off in that whole time. My wife hates it, but what can you do? But no matter what time the phone rings, I will certainly pick up the phone, and you'll probably be surprised most of the time I'm not sleeping. So, but those three promises are promises that I do make, and those are promises that I will keep if I am fortunate enough to win a seat.
Thanks. Thanks, Keith. Craig?
As far as keeping a promise, I think integrity is, paramount for an elected official. I think it's important, I think, for everybody to keep their word, and if you say you're going to do something, to do it. I think, especially for an elected official, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to serve as the Ward 1 councillor, you can count on me following up with anything that I say that I'll do. I was raised to understand that integrity is a very important thing, and I believe that as an elected official, you need to lead your community in that way. As far as being responsive, I will definitely promise to be as responsive as I can be to make sure that the issues are addressed that are brought forth from our constituents in Ward 1. And I promise, lastly, to do my best. I'm not always going to have the answer. I'm not always going to have a magic solution for whatever the issue is in your neck of the woods, but I promise that I'll look you in the face and I'll tell you that I'm working on it, and I will do the best that I can to find a resolution, or at the very least, do the best that I can to find out why the situation is what it is, and collectively discuss with you how we can work on it. I think a lot of times, there's a lot of lip service as far as people saying, I'll promise to do this, and you can count on me, and you can count on that, and I can be reached, at any time of the day. I think that's all well and good as long as there's the reality that you really mean it and that you're going to be there. And if I'm elected to this position, you can count on me to do my best to be there and to work hard on your behalf.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Russ?
Promises to keep. I promise not to change who I am or what I believe in. Politicians have a tendency to be a politician and not a good neighbor sometimes. The special interest I represent will be the residents of Ward 1, and they're my first priority. I have a couple of remarks to make about the tax situation from commercial properties, though. Craig brought up the fact that they're at the maximum level at 175%. That is true, but they are assessed differently than a home. As a home is based on a market approach, commercial properties are based on income approach, significantly different. Many of the commercial properties have not seen a tax increase in 10 years. Unlike homeowners, we have seen 50 or 60% increases over the past 10 years. So as a politician, I promise you nothing. As an individual, I promise you not to change. I'll be myself, and I'll consider you first and do the best I can to represent Ward 1 residents. Thank you.
Okay, Russ, thank you. Barry?
All right, so this is for the Ward 6 councillor, Keith Doucette. There's a lot of issues in Ward 6, and a lot of those, once again, those issues focus quality of life, and that's a reoccurring theme. But though, however small they may be, they're a concern to that resident is very important to that person. So in terms of quality of life in the ward, and being the past councilor for 10 years, I know it very well. But quality of life issues, aggregate industries, the blasting, Birch Hill, development, it was supposed to be a 5-year plan, 2 years have gone by, we don't even have a foundation. The terrible water pressure up in the Symphony Park area, it's getting worse. It's getting worse, and the streets. So what is your opinion of these issues? And if elected, would you do anything differently, or how would you address these issues?
Well, I think the water issue is going to be taken care of with the project that was just laid out by the mayor. And I look forward to working with that project if fortunate enough to win a seat, because again, I've been in that house for forever. That was my childhood home, and like I had said at one point in time, if I'm taking a shower and my neighbor wants to water his lawn, I'm no longer taking a shower. So so the pressure issues they're bad, they're terrible, and we understand that. But I think the plan rolled out by the mayor should take care of that issue, and I look forward to working with them on that. As far as the Birch Hill Estates and the aggregate projects go, the reoccurring theme that I'm hearing from abutters and from neighbors and whatnot is they have no idea what's going on. They haven't heard anything. They haven't heard from their ward councillor. So that's the overwhelming thing that I keep hearing. Several times I've heard as I stop and introduce myself and tell them what I'm running for, that they've asked me, "Oh, is Barry not running again?" And I say, well, no, Barry's been gone for 2 years. So it's, again, we need to be focused, especially on those locations where quality of life is affected on a daily basis by what's going on at the immediate time. Aggregate's not new. It's been there forever. It's going to be there for quite a long time. Their closure plan was, 25 years or something like that? And they're not closing at that time either. So it's going to be around for a long time. We need to have some special focus on those neighborhoods. So what I would do is I would set up monthly meetings with those neighborhoods to try to figure out what's going on, how my constituents are feeling, what they're seeing, and trying to figure out how to move forward by being engaged with the management at the quarry, and talking with them hopefully on a weekly basis, if not daily, if we have to. Birch Hill Estates holding the developer to a timeline. I mean, we have a construction schedule that ended in April. We don't have a new schedule. I confirmed that with the city. How come we need to get a construction schedule that goes through to at least the pouring of a foundation, which hasn't been done yet? So right now, like Barry said, it was supposed to be a 5-year project. We're 2 years into it. We have no foundation. We have 2 roads. I think we have some pipes in there and whatnot. This for sure is going to be a 7-year project, without a doubt, and maybe even more if it doesn't stop moving faster. So those are the things that I am going to focus on, making sure that those abutters and those neighbors are taken care of, heard, and they're on distribution lists like they've asked to be, and they have all the information they need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keith. What do we got for time, folks? Don, what do we got for time? Because I think
got
we're getting close to.
You got time.
10 minutes if you want it.
We have 10 if we want, but how much if we don't want the 10?
Whenever you want to cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking it's 5, so I don't think we
overtime.
have time for any more questions. I think I'd like to have, have all of the candidates make a closing statement. And wanted to say thank you all for coming. You did very well, all of you. Learned a lot, and even though some of the questions had different themes to them, they all revolve around the same thing: quality of life. Okay, because you spend to maintain quality of life. You refuse things to maintain quality of life. And we're going to do a show on quality of life, and we're going to do a show on 40B to see how that target is always a moving target.
Yep.
It's never static. You can never satisfy it. You can't satisfy 40B.
can't.
It'll never go away.
Nope.
So keep that in mind, okay? But it all revolves around quality of life, and you did a great job, all of you. But I want to make sure that our viewing audience gets one last look at you before the election. So I'm going to ask all of you to make a closing statement. What do we give, minute and a half, whatever?
Yeah, give him an hour.
All right, I'm going to start over here. Keith, you're going to start.
John hadn't got a chance to go first yet, right?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh, you want to think about what you want?
No,
to
no,
okay,
that's
all right.
fine with me,
I mean,
but
if you need
I
to-
just figured it was, if it was going around.
You'll go
that's
like this.
fine.
That's fine.
So again, my name's Keith Doucette, Ward 6. I'm running for Ward 6 councillor, and so what I'd like to say is that everybody sitting in this room, in these chairs, that gave up their time tonight to come in and talk to the voters. A lot of times what happens is the challengers get a bad rap sometimes. And it's, people label us as, as problems, as crabbers and complainers and whatnot. What I want everybody to understand is every single person sitting in this seat loves Peabody. I don't care if it's been 49 years or 10 years. All of us love this city, and we just want to see the best for it. With that, we also understand that every city, and Peabody included, has their issues. And just because we bring those issues to the forefront and we discuss those and we place responsibility on the current elected officials for some of the problems, doesn't mean that we're complainers, and doesn't mean that we don't like the things, we don't like the city. So with that, what I'd like to everybody to know is that, again, moving forward, I promise to work with everybody that's elected and all the residents of Peabody, especially the Ward 6 residents, to make sure that you're involved in the process, that you see the process, that you see everything that we go through, and that you understand why we're voting a certain way. I want to set up monthly meetings with my ward residents and sit down and hear what's going on in each different precinct to make sure that we're on track. Make sure I'm doing the right things. Make sure I'm doing right by the ward, by the constituents, doing your work. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing your work. I am your employee. You tell me what you want, and I will move forward and try to get that done. And again, I will do it in as much cooperation as I can with everybody that's sitting on the council, and of course with Mayor Betancourt. Thank you very much for hearing me out. Again, please, I hope I've earned your vote on November 5th, and I'm #1 on the ballot.
Thank you, Keith. John?
Hi. Again, my name is John Salisbury, like the beach. It's easy to remember in Massachusetts. I'm a scientist, and that kind of makes me hardwired to think about problems, how you solve them, how you innovate around them. And it's very different from the way a politician approaches something. I think we've had a lot of the approach of a politician who wants credit. And I'm interested in what the critical issues are, how to solve things in advance, understanding what problems are coming up and being ready for them before they come up. Again, like I said before, I like doing my homework. And in the J.B. Thomas project, that was kind of my role. I looked into whether what we were being told was right or not, and more often than not, it just wasn't right. We were being fed lines. What I think, as a problem solver, I want the hard questions. I want you to come to me and say, we're not doing things correctly, and to figure out how we're going to solve these big problems. Politician just wants to be out there, have his picture taken, tell you who he knows, and listen to the powerful, because they're ultimately going to fund and promote them. Like I said, I've loved getting out in the neighborhoods. I think it's a great thing to do, and I have no idea. Well, I do know, but I have no idea why councilors don't do this all year long. Really, it's the best way to know what's going on in your ward, and that's exactly what you should be doing. You should be taking the concerns that are bigger than an individual household and making them your own, and doing the homework and being prepared when you come to council. And that's a job which I think a politician doesn't worry about because he's just thinking about the next election, but that I'll certainly take seriously. So I would love your vote. I've had a lot of fun talking to all of you out in Ward 4. It's definitely the best ward. And
Right.
No,
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Jackie?
You know, John, I have to disagree with
Yeah.
you. I think Ward 2 might be the best one.
all right, now we've got a debate.
Time's up.
Yeah, I know. I sandbagged you, sorry.
So at the beginning of the show, I think Dick brought up a very apropos point, which is that a lot of people have had enough of empty leadership, which is why I'm running. I was a concerned citizen that decided to put my name on the ballot. I continue to be a concerned citizen, and so I'm asking for your vote on November 5th. I'm number 1 on the ballot, Jacqueline Corvo for Ward 2, and I'm running because I experienced a lot of what I hear going door to door, that there hasn't been leadership on a lot of these issues. And John brings up a great point. What we choose to study in school, I think, says a lot about us. I chose to go back for my MBA at almost 29, and it's all about forecasting when you look at going into business. And that's what I like to do. I like to look 10 years ahead, 5 years ahead. What are things going to look like? What can we do to be more prepared, to put ourselves in the best situation possible to build a community that works for as many people as possible? And as a Ward 2 representative, that's what I would look to do. I would look to get my hands dirty. I would want to know everything that's going on in the ward that affects quality of life, whether it be traffic, whether it be rising taxes, which, by the way, I would not support a tax increase my first year in office. That would make 18 years. That's just too much, in my opinion. So if you like higher taxes, by all means vote for my opponent, Jacqueline Corvo, number 1 on the ballot for Ward 2. And I really do humbly ask for your vote for a real change in leadership for Ward 2 on November 5th.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, Russ?
Yes, my name's Russell Donovan. I'm number 2 on the ballot for Ward 1 councillor. For the past 40 years or so, I've been following politics in PB. I've been following the issues that concern the residents of Ward 1, whether it be flooding, development, problems with quality of life, traffic. Those aren't new issues to me. I've been following to great detail. Nothing new here, folks. I'm the same old person that you've seen on numerous city council meetings, representing you and myself in Ward 1, and I want to continue to do that as your Ward 1 councillor. Russ Donovan, number 2 on the ballot. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Russ. Last word, Greg.
Thanks. Again, my name's Craig Welton. I'm running for Ward 1 councillor. I'd appreciate your vote on November 5th. The reason I'm running is because I really want to do everything I can to make our ward as strong as it can be. I'm raising my 4 kids in Ward 1. I guess you could call that my self-interest, and that's really what, how we've got our roots down in the community, and I want what's best for them. I want what's best for everybody who's in our community. I'm proud to call Peabody home. I'm proud that my kids are going to school here, and I really want to work hard on your behalf to make sure that we have all the nice things that we want and we can afford all the nice things that we want without having to increase our taxes substantially. I think, as Russ mentioned, there are a lot of problems that have been around for 40 years. There's been, traffic and issues and, increasing taxes and things like that. I think what I bring to the table is, an innovative approach and a new perspective and the willingness and the desire to do the hard work to find opportunities where we can generate the revenue that we need to have the nice things that we want and have a great community. That's really the whole basic concept of why I'm running is I want our ward to be as strong as it can possibly be and to preserve the high quality of life while maintaining the affordability. So again, I'd really appreciate your vote. November 5th, my name is Craig Welton. I'm first on the ballot for Ward 1 councillor, and I look forward to seeing you at the polls.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you. Barry, you want to comment?
Well, first, thank you everybody for coming on. You are very well spoken, you know the issues, and I think that reoccurring theme is that quality of life, and whoever gets elected, I hope in those 3 councils that didn't show up tonight, I know they're watching, I would say respect our neighborhoods, respect our zoning, protect our zoning, and don't build intrusively and destroy the quality of life of the residents of this city. And whoever gets elected here, if you're fortunate enough, just keep the people in mind, and that's what it's all about, is working for the residents and representing them in the best way you can. And thank you all for coming tonight. It means a lot to the residents, and means a lot to Dick and I. So thank you.
Well said. Hear, hear. Thank you very much. We okay to go on or off? Well, that's the thumbs up, okay. So again, thanks. Thank you for watching. We hope you appreciated the program. It was a very important program, and you got a chance to see these candidates, you know, last time before the election. So get out on November 5th. Please do. This is why it's important for people to get out and vote, because there's so many issues that affect all of us, and we need people who want to resolve those problems. So, and we're trying to bring those folks to you. So please get out and vote on November 5th, and we'll see you next time when we ask you to make the call. Thank you.